Let's take a look at some of the recommendations of this report by Human Rights Watch. It says the Qatari government should amend laws to meet international labor and human rights standards. It should stringently enforce its ban on the confiscation of foreign workers' passports, improve the monitoring of company practices and punish those who break the law. It recommends an end to the compulsory sponsorship of foreign workers by Qatari nationals. Human Rights Watch says this practice makes foreign workers vulnerable to potential abuse. Al Jazeera asked the Qatari government to comment on that report several times, but they have so far declined our request. Sharon Burrow is the General Secretary of International Trade Unions Confederation. She joins us now live from Brussels. Thank you for speaking to Al Jazeera. It is not just Human Rights Watch that has come out with a damning report. I believe your organization has collated its own statistics of the labor practices, labor conditions here in Qatar.
This is an appalling story of 21st century enslavement of workers. The reality is there can be no World Cup in Qatar unless there are labour rights, unless there are human and labour rights in law and in practice. I met yesterday with the acting Minister of Labour and the Ambassador at the ILO conference in Geneva. I can tell you I am not convinced that they have any intention of putting in place genuine freedom of association. I've spoken with workers from Nepal who were just in the last few weeks who fled back to Nepal, and they are scarred for life. Young men scarred for life. We've spoken to workers in Qatar. There is fear, there is absolute denial of freedom of mobility. People are not paid, and of course they live in conditions that, as I said to the Labour ministers yesterday, you would not have your son or daughter live in for love nor money. This has to end. We need to be able to organise unions. They need to be able to access proper redress in terms of persecution of employers. And we also said to the Minister, we want to introduce to you reputable companies that will organise migration, that won't take money, that won't exploit workers.
You said the Qatari government hasn't shown any interest in improving conditions. What did the acting Minister of Labour have to say to you?
They offered us a draft law, yet unseen, on a committee, a government committee, to protect workers' rights. This is not freedom of association. They believe that despite the stories of fear, of oppression, of sexual abuse, of worse, that an individual will simply make a complaint and they can fix it. That is so far from the reality of these workers' lives, the conditions they live in, that it's just shameful. In 21st century global community terms, no government that treats workers like this, that exploits them, where workers work for some of the richest countries of the companies in the world, in one of the richest countries, can we accept that they're paid a pittance, they have no rights, and they're forced to live like they are.
Qatar is a member of the ILO, isn't it? Is there anything that the ILO and your union can do to improve conditions for workers here?
Well, the ILO has already indicated that the Gulf states must do more, that Qatar must do more. There is an absolute commitment. The core convention for labour is freedom of association, the right to join a union, to bargain collectively, to stand up for the rights and the conditions that make work decent. So we know that this government is not really serious when all it will offer is a paternalistic committee. We want them to do better. We are intent on running a global campaign that will not stop till there's no World Cup unless there are labour rights. And it's urgent because 300,000 more workers will swell the ranks to build those stadiums. And when more people will be injured or die on those construction sites than will ever play on the fields, then this is not a story of a government who deserves to be part of the global community.
Sharon, thank you for your time. We're going to leave it there. Sharon Burrow, General Secretary of the International Trade Unions Confederation.